Okay, good afternoon. It is 1:12, and we have 4 informational briefings to go through, and these dedicated leaders to give us these informational briefings have all committed to doing this in 15 minutes or less. So I'm very proud to hear that. First up, Board of Elections. Ms. Berry, how are you?
Hello, Commissioner. I'm well. How are you guys today?
Very good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today on behalf of the Board of Elections. I am pleased to present an overview of our agency, talk a little bit about where we are currently, where we've been, and where we want to be within the next 5 years or so. So you should all have a presentation that I put together as notes. I will not be reading it verbatim, of course. I should also introduce John Woodley is the secretary of the board, and so he is here to address any other questions that I may not be able to answer today. So, as you may be aware, the Board of Elections plays an intricate role in state and federal elections. We have an election every 2 years that we facilitate for Carroll County voters. We maintain a lot of different programs in our office, including voter registration, mail-in ballot processes, preparing polling places, early voting centers. With redistricting, we were redrawing all of the lines that were outlined in the new laws. We have election supply management, voting system security management, voting system management, and maintenance, securing all of the equipment, and of course candidacy and campaign finance. We mainly handle candidate filings for local offices, and then petitions, which we don't typically see because of our form of government as a commissioner form of government. So the organization is made up of 10 full-time state employees, and we have 5 board members that are appointed every 4 years by the governor. So we will be having a change in our board in June. The board has a majority party that is represented by the governor's party. So after 8 years of having a majority Republican board, we will be switching to a majority Democratic board. We are tasked with implementing all election-related legislation from the General Assembly and also from the federal government. You will learn through the budget hearings especially, Ted will say it a few times, we are a mandated agency. So there's not much in my budget that you have the flexibility to omit. So that will be an ongoing conversation that we have. Our goal, of course, is to maintain a nonpartisan election, be transparent with our voters, and have as much accessibility to the ballot as we can for them. So right now we have about 129,000 active voters. So some recent changes. Over the past 5 years, you may have noticed elections is a much more high profile. We are on the news at the federal level daily. We have some significant funding deficits, lack of storage, office space, limited voter education because of funding, and an increase in, of course, public meeting requirements for election offices. So this is kind of an overview of the whole nation. And so, yes, we do have those here locally, which we try to address through the budget cycle. Department of Homeland Security plays an intricate role in our processes. They have departments that handle cyber and physical security for election offices. We also have a contact at the FBI and emergency management departments, which I did have to work with in this past election for several incidences that happened at the office. So during the 2021-22 sessions in Annapolis, we have now gotten expanded voting hours. We have drop boxes. We are mandated to send mail-in ballot applications to all our registered voters, and we have ballot styles by precinct. Also, in that period of time, we were mandated, because of the number of registered voters we have, to have 3 early voting centers with the option of 4. So we have had a lot of adjustments. So now, some things about our immediate challenges I just wanted to debrief all of you on is with regard to all of the mandates that we have and the space that we have at the Robert Moton Center. I do want to thank the 3 commissioners who did come and tour my facility and ask questions, had the opportunity to just get a visual on that. But we are looking at the need to have a larger and more secure training facility because of all of the mandates that are still coming as it is today. We also are expecting to have a new electronic poll book in 2024, so staff overtime will be required. More sophisticated training for election judges will be required. And then, of course, we also have to rely on having a secure facility. So limiting access from the public to our secure areas, we need to have the optimal amount of warehouse and office space to service our voters and then also to secure the voting system. We currently have, it's almost $500 million insurance policy that the county carries for our office and warehouse because of the amount of critical infrastructure that we have in our facility. So as I keep mentioning, the state has mandates that we have to follow. Our current facility doesn't meet all of the mandates with the state because of some of the inadequacies as it pertains to security and space and the unlimited access. The other thing that has recently come to light is we have an exposed sprinkler system that is underneath a gym floor, and that is the ceiling of the facility where we have most of our voting equipment. So you're talking about millions of dollars that are there in that facility. I did have a few pictures as I keep going on this, but we do plan to have a new voting system procured by the State Board of Elections for 2026's election. So our current voting system is leased. We have had it since 2016, and we, of course, don't know what the future is going to hold with that. We will continue to concurrently have in-person and by-mail elections, so we have to have the space to be able to facilitate whatever the new laws that are making a more sophisticated program and adjusting to that dual type of voting. And as I mentioned, we were deemed a critical infrastructure in 2015. And it's not just Carroll County, of course, this is all elections in the country. So I've provided for you a couple of photos of our current situation with storage. You'll notice in at least 2 of the photos there are toilets because they are bathrooms that we are storing various things that are required by the state to have. Our voting equipment is maintained quarterly and right now is undergoing post-election maintenance, so it needs to be fully accessible to our staff, which is why you see that there. I should note that ballot marking devices, which are in 2 of the photos, they cost about $3,500 a piece, and the scanning units cost over $5,200 a piece. So our future, what we're looking at for over the next 6 months to 2 years, of course, we have the presidential primary election coming. Historically, we will see a 40% turnout for that. We expect to implement new poll books, have election judge training that will start at the end of this year, and it's going to include virtual and in-person training. Some of the virtual component we have to have because we don't have the space to allow for our election judges to come in. And currently, we will have our 3 early voting centers, 24 polling places, and then multi-day mail-in ballot canvass. There is legislation that would mandate that to start before early voting begins. So in 3 to 5 years, we could be looking at possibly moving toward more mail-in voting, a vote center structure like you may have seen in the 2020 election. And then, as I mentioned, the new voting system in 2026, a new voter registration database
You
is
brought him.
coming, I know, is coming in 2028. And there's always a question mark about a primary election date change. There's always people that talk about that, but currently our primary in 2024 is set for April. And we are always looking at people studying elections, the security that we need, the, and that goes physical and cyber, and then of course alterations to early voting. There are a few bills about that too. So that's kind of what we're looking at in the 3 to 5 year outlook. So I do have a couple of notes in summary, but I do want to make sure that you all understand that the Board of Elections is here in partnership with the county. We try to be as flexible as we can within the mandates that we are required to have. The county is responsible for funding the Board of Elections right now at almost 100%. There are a few things that are a 50-50 cost split, or that the state will pick up at 100%. But when it comes to our facility and the security around the facility, that is something that is the responsibility of the county right now. So I'm hopeful that you understand the mandates that we have and kind of the risk that we are taking right now with such things as the exposed sprinkler system over millions of dollars of equipment that we have. So without going too far into the budget process, this is something that I have asked for several years, and we're just trying to sort out how much space we need and that type of thing. So with that being said, I will open it up for questions, and thank you very much for letting me speak with you today.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Catherine, for everything you do, and John. Thank you, John, for everything you do as well, and thanks for being here. I appreciate that. You mentioned the insurance policy. How much was that again? That was 500,000 or
500 million.
500 million? Okay, that was when I thought you said 500,000. I thought to myself, that's not going to be enough. And you mentioned the leasing of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just get into that? Can you delve into that just for a minute or two real quick? I didn't quite understand that part.
Sure. So when we get a new voting system, that is something that is put through an RFP with procurement on the state side. We are a top-down state, so anything that the state procures is something we will carry into. So with this last voting system, the state board leased it. It wasn't a purchase. So we have to keep it in pristine condition because we have to give it back to the vendor when the lease is expired. And the lease is set to expire in time for the 2026 election. So that's why we're looking at the State Board of Elections putting out a new RFP for a new voting system. It was the lease contract.
That you would be able to lease again.
It depends on what the agreement is. We could, of course, extend the lease on the current voting system. I'm hesitant to say that will happen because there are several pieces of legislation that are looking at different ways of voting. So it's really dictated by the RFP with the State Board of Elections and whether it is a purchase or a lease.
Yeah, and just to be clear, when you say we, you're really referring to the state board,
The
not
entity.
to the local, because they're the ones who will make the decision as to whether it's leased, whether it's purchased, what system's leased, what system's purchased.
Right, and then we just have to make sure that we have the adequate amount of space to facilitate the new coming in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought things were supposed to be getting smaller, but they don't seem to be getting smaller. They seem to be getting bigger.
It was significantly smaller prior to 2016, but when we went back to paper, that added, instead of having one touchscreen unit, there's basically 3 pieces going into the process now. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
Yes.
Please.
Your building, you might not need more space if it were more efficient area, But the building you're in other words, if Parks and Rec moved and you took over that space, that doesn't solve your problem. You need a more efficient layout, safer building.
Yes, yes.
In Westminster, or doesn't? Should
The
be.
preference is to be more centrally located in the county so that we are equally accessible to all of our voters. Yes.
But is that a preference or is that a
There's-
determination?
Right. There's nothing that is mandated. It's one of those just unwritten rules, I guess, that we try to strive to follow as a local board of elections. And we try to make sure every county tries to do that to the greatest extent possible.
So where's Baltimore counties?
Right. They are in Hunt Valley. Yeah.
Pretty difficult from Dundalk to Hunt Valley, but
Yeah. They also have public transportation, so they have some protections with that as well.
I mean, I do. I understand the intent, but sometimes, again, you're talking about cost estimate and risk. You know, where does it all fit in? I apologize. Were you still going?
No. That
So,
that pretty much covered
yeah,
it. She answered.
You know, because I've been hearing this for a few years, and I don't disagree. I mean, you're the expert in what right looks like. If we found a location or a facility that suits your needs, but not in the right location, does it outweigh the value of being where you are in Westminster? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. So that's a discussion point. I would have to go back to the State Board of Elections, and like they have to give final approval to all of our early voting centers and drop box locations. It would kind of be the same type of situation. But of course, we strive as a county agency to, be as central as we can for fairness of our voters, because we don't have the public transportation maybe like other counties do and such.
But you're really a state agency.
Well, yes, but we are serving our county voters.
Oh,
so,
I understand, and I don't disagree, but it's mandates that the county has to do. I mean, we
Yes.
don't have much of a voice when it comes to funding and following the guidelines that are dictated by the state. So this is one of those times where I always like making the comment, nobody knows Carroll County better than Carroll Countyans. That's not true in this case. Nobody knows Carroll County elections better than the state of Maryland. And that's unfortunate. It would be nice if it was under our control. I think we can get a whole lot more done. But like a few others, there's just not the way it's designed.
Right.
So I can't argue it because that's just not the way it's designed. I think as we move forward, knowing the risk associated with the infrastructure, the sprinklers, things, knowing the value or the gain if you were to get another facility or another X, the impact, I think is important because, we're looking at opportunities. I mean, there could be a capital project that can help move this along. And that's really what this is all about. It's all capital. But
And if I may, one
Please.
of the other reasons that Westminster is more of an ideal situation is because we are out of space at our early voting center in Westminster. It is impeding on our seniors.
yeah,
And so if we had the ability to have something in Westminster that was large enough to facilitate early voting as well, that would alleviate a lot of other concerns.
having your office and storage along with being
Yes.
co-located with early voting.
Yes. And there are several counties around the state that do that,
Yeah.
that have a large enough space too. And that's what's currently in the CIP request. Yep.
Do we have a location like that here in Westminster?
I I don't know. I can give you
Wow.
right off the top of my head, in Washington County, they are using an old grocery store that they have created into an early voting center and their office
Your
location.
Office space.
Yes. And Anne Arundel County uses a industrial park
Yeah.
area for similar.
Does the
Similar
state
setup.
care if you're in a leased facility? They don't?
No,
care,
there are
right?
several counties that are in leased facilities in industrial parks. Most counties actually are in industrial parks now.
Yeah.
So
Which would fit the design you're talking about.
yes.
I don't know. I don't know what's, out there. Interesting. Yeah, go on.
And I know we're probably pressed for time. Do we have to operate at least 3 early voting centers in the county? Is there okay, that is a hard number.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how having a facility with an early voting site in it would have exponential benefits in terms of training and all the other things you have to do and logistics and all that. So
We
that
try to be-
certainly would be ideal.
Right, and we try to be very cognizant of our seniors too, and the impact it has on their activities.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Appreciate the roll-up. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a great
Absolutely.
afternoon.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if we should allow Ms. Eisenberg to come up here yet or not, but
You got me again, and Mary.
and I have this for what's your name?
Tiffany?
Tiffany.
Awesome,
Yes.
thank
So,
you. We were so thrilled. Thank you so much. That was a big feather for them and their caps. They really did an outstanding job
They did.
on that document. Oh, no. Okay, so yes, I am back here before you. Good afternoon for a briefing on the Carroll County Department of Planning. So I'm not going to read, obviously, all of these words, but this is our mission statement from our website and what we're really responsible for in Carroll County. Maryland is one of the few states in the nation that actually has statewide planning, and talking about how the Board of Election is kind of top down. A lot of what we have to do in planning is dictated by the Maryland Land Use Article. So even though we have local autonomy for zoning, planning decisions, a lot of it's very much outlined for us on how to proceed and what the requirements are under state law. So who is the Department of Planning? So we're really a 12-member team, and I will say definitely dedicated staff to the future vision of Carroll County and working with the citizens of Carroll County and elected officials in achieving that vision. So I am obviously Linda Eisenberg, the Director of Planning, and the credentials AICP after my name means that I'm a certified planner through the American Institute of Planning, which it really is the equivalent of passing your bar. It's a very thorough vetting process, testing process. You have to have so many years of service to even be able to participate in the exam itself. So then underneath of me directly is Mary Lane, who's our planning manager. And then Price Wagner, who's a comprehensive planner, Laura Bavetta, who's my administrative assistant, and also clerk to the Planning Commission. I'll get in more into that further on. We have a GIS person on our staff, which is Geographic Information Systems, or computer mapping. So all those wonderful maps that you see that are so integral to planning, Kathleen helps to prepare those for our department. Our receptionist, Kathy Joy, and then we have a wonderful intern who has been with us for several intern cycles, Randolph Mitchell, and he comes to us from McDaniel, which was a really great partnership we've established with McDaniel in getting public policy administration interns to work with us throughout their school year. And then comprehensive planner Claire Stewart, who actually is attending McDaniel, getting her master's degree in public policy, Hannah Weber, Tiffany Fawcett, Abigail Rogers, and our newest planner, Andrew Gray, who was an intern here 2013-2014, and then graduated college, got his master's degree in planning, and then worked for the city of Westminster, and we were able to steal him back and bring him onto our team, so he's an excellent addition to our team. The reason I wanted to kind of go over everyone's education with you is that Most of our staff is master's prepared. Planning is kind of that discipline where it's multidisciplinary and very general in some ways, but very specific in others. And it really does take that master preparedness to be at that next level in the planning discipline. So our planners specialize in geographic areas. So this map demonstrates the geographic areas of responsibility because, again, geography, place matters in planning especially. So not only do our planners have a sense of place for each of the areas they represent, they also have a level of understanding of specific disciplines that they're in charge of. So for instance, Hannah Weber, who you've seen come before you many times, she processes our zoning requests. Price Wagner processes water and sewer. These are very in-depth tasks that require a lot of knowledge. So I'd like to have at least one person who really understands the ins and outs of those processes and how to move those through the system, so to speak. I try the best I can to be able to cross-train everyone, but unfortunately, many other departments were really one deep. So if someone leaves in a particular area, I'll fill in, or I'll try to bring someone up to speed, but there's not another planner who can really jump right in to do those things. But we do our best to try to cross-train our staff and to understand what other staff members are working on at any given time.
How are those geographic boundaries broken up?
I can't, I think those are our general election districts, not the commissioner district. Ooh.
I'm not sure, but when we assign
Yeah.
them, which I'm not sure if you're asking
Yeah,
that.
they're election districts. Yeah,
That's what it looks like.
they're not our commissioner election districts, but they are election districts.
Okay, so after you all are done, I'd like you to go into my office, and on my table is a map from 1912.
Okay.
And it has geographic areas along with election districts.
Okay.
I'd be curious if this is the same as that.
Okay.
Because
okay.
I mean, I'm thinking there's a significant similarity.
Gotcha. I'll have to go check that out. So yeah, so
Do not take my map. You can look at my map.
I'll take a picture.
I'm just curious. So
No, that's an interesting question. I've never been asked that, so we will definitely take a look. But no, they are the general election districts that they're broken down by. We try to keep planners within a certain regional area. Like the planner, obviously, who does election districts 6 and 8, also does Hampstead and Manchester. And then Sykesville's a little bit different because this particular planner does the city of Sykesville, the town of Sykesville, but also is responsible for the general Finksburg area. And then a planner that covers the Mount Airy region, and then the Union Bridge, New Windsor, and then the Tawnytown and the area surrounding Tawnytown. So not only do we serve the county in terms of our planners and our liaison planners, but we also work with 2 commissions within Carroll County. And I would argue that the Planning and Zoning Commission is probably one of the more important boards and commissions within Carroll County. All plans for development within the county come through the Planning and Zoning Commission for their approval, and they have approval authority over that. And they also work under your direction in the master planning, comprehensive planning process for your adoption of that plan. And that is really, under Maryland law, what is our guiding document, that even things beyond planning have to be measured against, actually such as the CIP. That has to be consistent with the plan. Basically, the county, from a budgetary standpoint, shouldn't be spending money, let's just say, like on a new school, when a new school hasn't been called for in a planning process, there aren't the demographics to support it, things like that, that we're always looking for that consistency. So as the director of the Department of Planning, I'm also secretary to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I work with the chair of the commission to set a work plan and monthly agendas. And we come up with 2 agendas a month, one for our work session, which is a more informal discussion period, and a business meeting, which is really doing the business of the day, approving plans and moving projects through the process. Laura Bavetta, as I mentioned, is an administrative person on our team, and she is also the clerk to the Planning Commission. So that requires her working on helping after the agenda is set, setting it, publishing it, posting it, mailing it out to not only staff but applicants who have particular items on the agenda. She keeps the minutes and working really closely with Chris Swam and his team using our Minitrack system, making sure that the videos are done, etc. And record and all the records of the commission and sending out all the mailings. Commissioner Garin, you were on Planning Commission, and we have not changed that. We still have these huge paper copies of plans, site and subdivision that we mail out for what's on the agenda. Those mailings are huge. It would be amazing to have a complete electronic system. I know we have some components that are electronic, but sometimes you just can't get a screen big enough when you're unfolding these plans. And so really to look at the details, and that's what these site plans are, very detailed. You need like these big packets. So that's something that we mail out monthly before our meeting, so our Planning Commission members have enough time to review that information prior to it being vetted and reviewed at a Planning Commission meeting. Responsibilities of the commission, as I said, is all things comprehensive planning. The county plans, the comprehensive plan, water and sewer plans, which you've seen come before you. Working on a transportation master plan, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We don't have one in Carroll County. We have a roads map from 1964 that's kind of been that guiding document for that, and you've seen that too with our discussion on the Consolidated Transportation Program Priority Letter. And then all other what we call functional plans, so a bicycle pedestrian plan, parks and recreation, things like that, we would consider more functional plans. Planning Commission's responsible for zoning and subdivision code revisions. So as you've seen happen here, items changing chapters 155 and 158, the way our code is written, are referred from the Board of County Commissioners to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review, consideration, and recommendation back up to the Board of County Commissioners. Site and subdivision approvals, and again, consistency requirement for certification. We do this for Board of Zoning Appeals when a conditional use or something is appealed to from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Our main role is to look at consistency with the master plan. Planning's portion of reviewing site plans is to make sure that that site plan is consistent with the master plan. That's a Planning Commission responsibility. So not only do we work with Planning Commission on a very robust basis, we also work with the Historic Preservation Commission. The boundaries of the Historic Preservation Commission is oversight for exterior alteration improvements and approvals in the Uniontown Historic District. So Uniontown is our only historic district under the county's jurisdiction. And because it is a historic district, it has to be run by a preservation commission. That preservation commission reviews all of the exterior alterations that are being proposed. They don't meet very regularly. They only meet typically when there's an application that's come before them and that they need to approve those applications in accordance with how the code is written and what their responsibilities are. We also set agendas working with them for upcoming meetings. And so Hannah Weber, who you've met before, she is our staff to the HPC, as we refer to them. And that's codified within our zoning code. So planning quickly in a snapshot. So other boards that we participate in is the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board and the various subcommittees that are tied to that. So I am the county's empowered representative. So I represent you, the legislative body, the Board of County Commissioners, on this transportation board. The duties and responsibilities of this transportation board are to fulfill federal requirements and federal funding distribution of transportation dollars for the Baltimore metropolitan region. And that is a mouthful, but that's exactly what we do. MDOT is the check holder, so to speak, and they write the checks, and we're kind of asking for how the money and how to distribute it amongst the Baltimore region. As you can see by the graphic, the map with the blue and gray, the blue are all of the counties that are part of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, which is our local MPO, our Metropolitan Planning Organization. That was established under federal law when you meet certain population requirements that you must belong to an MPO, and then that's how the funds are passed through and distributed to local jurisdictions for some transportation projects and other federal transportation programs that are moving through the system. So from my staff, Mary Lane sits on the technical group. Kathleen Comer sits on cooperative forecasting, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. Chris Litnachin and someone from the Sheriff's Department are on a safety subcommittee, and they are responsible for the most recently adopted Highway Safety Transportation Master Plan that was required for every local jurisdiction to do to kind of reach that zero death on roads milestone. We have a bicycle pedestrian group, which Claire Stewart is a part of, and then the Reservoir Technical Group. And that is a technical group that governs the Baltimore metropolitan area's reservoirs and drinking supply. So Liberty, Lock Raven, Pretty Boy, that whole water system has this oversight group. And we have an operating agreement with the other jurisdictions with regards to land use issues and zoning issues and development issues within the reservoir itself. This was not established, I don't believe, because I don't think it dates back that far with the establishment of the reservoirs themselves, but this came much later, and we've had agreements with the other jurisdictions who draw their water from the Baltimore metropolitan system dating back to the 80s. We also prepare required reports. So again, a lot of things come from the state of Maryland. We are required annually to prepare an annual planning report. And actually, I really like this report because it is a snapshot from that year of the whole planning and development pipeline. And we'll bring this before you all for your review. It's certified by our planning commission, as well as we prepare this for all of our municipalities. Our municipalities, some have more or less technical experience than others and staff to be able to provide this. So we do it on their behalf, and we work with them and their planning commissions to get information of what their activities were for the year. This is anything from zoning code changes to rezoning map amendments to annexation requests to how many use and occupancy permits were issued for that particular calendar year. And it's a calendar year, so January 1 to December 31st. We also do the county comprehensive plan, the water and sewer amendments, which we try to do twice a year, as well as the required triennial update, which is every 3 years, resets that baseline for water and sewer within the county. We also do that on behalf of the municipalities as well, and that's set out under the COMAR, the Code of Maryland Regulations. And then, as you saw earlier today, we came forward with the MDOT Consolidated Transportation Programs Priority Letter. Some other things that we do some processes. So obviously you've seen us process zoning code amendments, map amendments, also referred to as piecemeal rezonings, and annexation requests. Our job in annexation requests is just to process and to vet the information. We, the county, have no formal role in annexations. You can't approve an annexation, you can't deny an annexation. The power that the Board of County Commissioners does have, though, is if a zoning waiver is required by the municipality. A zoning waiver is typically required when the annexation request, the new zoning for the town, because now they're going into the municipality, is 50% more intense than what it is in the county. So for instance, if something is zoned agricultural, let's say in the county, it's being annexed into the municipality and it's going to be zoned commercial of some sort. They then have to request a zoning waiver, and that is the job of the Board of County Commissioners to either approve or deny that zoning waiver. If a waiver is denied by the Board of County Commissioners, by state law, the municipality cannot rezone that land for a minimum of 5 years. So then it just kind of stays in like this limbo. So it really behooves the towns to work with us and to understand the process and to make sure that we get it right when this annexation occurs, and we don't have issues with that. We get those pretty frequently when zoning waivers are requested, because the towns have the ability to definitely develop at much higher densities than a lot of the land surrounding the town, because of infrastructure that they provide that the county does not. We'd also administer several programs: the Energy Saver Loan Program, the Finksburg Sustainable Community Program, and thank you, Commissioner Kyler, for your letter of support and outreach to the community, trying to get the Finksburg community really invested, especially in facade improvements. And so we have a facade improvement program, which is a $50,000 grant program that we have for the Finksburg improvement corridor. We've loaned $6,000 today, and we're still trying to spend that $50,000 to have businesses within that corridor of 140 participate to improve the exterior of their business. Safe Routes to School program, which is a sidewalk program. We have 2 Safe Routes to School sidewalk programs in Carroll County. One's on Johnsville Road in the Freedom area. The other one is in Westminster, in front of Westminster High School, which is finishing up design and should hopefully go to construction soon. And then we also administer funding through the Unified Planning Work Program, which is federal funding that comes from our role in the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. And then finally, we are liaisons to the municipalities. We attend each municipal planning commission meeting and as much as possible assist towns in planning efforts. My understanding prior to me being here for the last 10 years, that before that, planning was a much bigger department, much bigger than the 12 of us. And we did a lot more work with the towns. We did a lot of work really on the ground planning with them. We don't really have that ability, and there's pros and cons of why we can and can't or should and should not do that, because it is the town's plans, but we understand that they don't have a lot of staff or ability, so we try to work with them as best as we can, but it's hard to balance that with all of the duties that we have as well and the amount of staff that we have. We also work with community groups in the non-incorporated areas of the county by attending their meetings and working on planning projects and processes with them. The Finksburg Community Group is one, and we've had great success with them, as well as the Freedom District Community Association Group, or FDCA. So here's just some examples of the work we do, our comprehensive plans. We have 3 main plans in the county: the County Master Plan, the Freedom Plan, and the Finksburg Plan. They're required to be updated in some fashion every 10 years by the state. Basically, the stick with that is if we don't have an up-to-date master plan, they could challenge rezoning requests that the county moves forward with. And there are required elements. So this is an example of the elements that we're required to have in those plans. So community facilities, development regulations, goals and objectives, housing, land use, sensitive areas, transportation, and water resources. And that's a big element, and that's something that Land and Resource Management is working on now with the water resources element. Comprehensive rezoning, you've seen a lot about this. We just finished a major undertaking. It was the first comprehensive revision of the county code and its maps, really in the county history since we've adopted zoning. We've done bits and pieces, but never an entire look at the entire county in the unincorporated areas. Because again, that's where we have our jurisdiction, the towns do their own. This was a 4-year process, and it was just completed this past December, right before you all came on board. It follows an adopted land use plan, and so depending on which of the 3 plans geographically the area is based, it will follow that plan. And really, this is where the rubber meets the road, and this really is the major implementing tool that we have for our master plan process. Water and sewer planning. Again, we not only do this for the county, we do it for the municipalities as well. We work with them on where their planned areas are, what they can and can't serve, where their lines are. It's very high level. We look to them to tell us what they can and can't do. It's not the other way around, but we help process all of that for them. And we also do not only a triennial update, which is required by the state, but if an amendment needs to come forward from a municipality or us where we're either putting someone in or taking someone out, which happens both ways, we organize and run that process and bring it to you all, because each time it's amended, it's a new adoption of the plan. And then that goes to Maryland Department of the Environment for their final stamp of approval. And this is just an example of the areas within the county that have some type of water and sewer infrastructure. So basically, all of our corporate areas and our growth area, except for the Finksburg area, and what you can see is this little small area. Finksburg, originally along 140 to the southeast, was planned for over 3,000 acres of another one of our growth areas. And at the time when it was thought of and contemplated was when there was still a consideration of water and sewer infrastructure for the Finksburg area. But that never came to fruition. So in the late 2010 or so, 2011, when they were revamping the Finksburg area, decided to contract the growth area from that over 3,000 acres to now 640 acres, which is really the commercial corridor of the Finksburg area. And there are no long-range plans for water and sewer for this area, so we're just concentrating on redevelopment of that commercial corridor. We do a lot of, I talked about demographics, and I talked about our cooperative forecasting. We can't know where we are or where we're going if we don't know who we're serving and how many people we have to serve. So we are constantly updating numbers of what we call population estimates. The only true gauge of population is the census, and we do that every 10 years. Our agency is the lead coordinator for the decennial census. In 2020, Carroll County was #1 in the state for self-reporting, so meaning that we got the word out well enough to our constituents that they went and actively participated in taking the census. We think that's a simple thing to do, and it should be our citizen duty to count where we are, when we're there. But a lot of people, there's a lot of concern with giving out your information and working with the census, but that's how we distribute money in this country from the federal government and local government and target where money needs to go. So we were #1 in the state for this self-reporting and #20 in the nation out of 3,200 counties in the country. So we really did a great job working with our partners and working within Carroll County with our census board and the group of people that staffed that board. And I could not be more thrilled with the turnout and of all the good work that was done with that. So again, as our role in the region, we belong to a cooperative forecasting group, and this is really great because I'm not a demographer. Demography is a very specialized discipline. We don't really have a demographer on staff, but our GIS person, Kathleen Comer, does a great job attending these meetings and helping to participate in working on our projections. And BMC does have demographers, and so does the state. So we work with the State Data Center and the Baltimore Metropolitan Council on helping us hone in what those numbers are for population in the future. So this is just an example of the data that they help us produce. So we do our population projections, as well as employment too is another big indicator. So we also have employment information that we work on with this group as well. So some upcoming projects. We're always moving forward, always have a lot to do. Some things that we're working on currently. We're finishing up our Carroll County Transportation Master Plan. Again, I said we've never done one, like a really comprehensive, thorough plan. We've done bits and pieces of things, but we only have a 1964 roads plan. So Mary has been leading that effort along with Claire Stewart in our office to come up with a transportation master plan for the county. And as you all know, we're working, and you met our consultants, a Carroll County Economic Development and Land Use Study. We have our first workshop scheduled for next Thursday, 5 to 7 p.m. at Exploration Commons. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to attend if possible, and that really brings in members of the community. We've been doing outreach. We've talked to a lot of the towns who are interested in coming, and so hopefully we have a nice turnout for that. And we have an evening of activities planned to really hone in on what some of the interests are within Carroll County. We're also working on a parking requirement study to see where our parking requirements sit, if we are overparked, underparked, what is kind of that sweet spot, what's a new modern parking code look like. There's been a lot of changes, if nothing else, the pandemic has taught us that now there's a lot of curbside pickup for all sorts of different things, and you got to make space for Grubhub and all the food delivery services too, so making sure that we are staying up with the times on that. Working on a housing study. Housing is going to be a big component of our next master plan. It's something that is being required very robustly by our state land use local authority. And then that will all kind of build up to the next Carroll County master plan, which we are looking to kick off in 2025. That'll be a little more than 10 years since our last plan adoption. And then this is just our contact information. And so that is all I have for you today. Was it 15 minutes?
14 minutes and 45 seconds.
Yes!
Oh, no.
Now I can kick back.
Plus another 30 minutes.
Oh, stop. It wasn't that bad.
Wasn't bad. Any comments, questions? A lot of information.
I have a question that's really from this morning, but I'm slow. And maybe it's not you guys, I'm curious. I've been curious over the years why you don't see a lot of planned unit developments in Carroll County and where they fit in the planning and the zoning. I'd be curious to see that. They've been very successful in Frederick County.
Yep, so we do have a PUD component. We really only have one PUD in the county. And I say it that way is because the municipalities have.
Yeah.
Right. So in the county under our jurisdiction, we have one in the Freedom area. The reason I can't answer for the municipalities why you don't see more there. Within the county, I would say if you're going to see it anywhere, you have to see it in the Freedom area because you need infrastructure, you need water, and you need sewer. And that's the only area in the county in which we have them. It's a development choice under our zoning code. It's not required, and we don't have a PUD zone specifically. We give that flexibility. So if a developer were to come in and the property meets the criteria, then they are certainly welcome to put a PUD in, but we don't do anything to incentivize or disincentivize PUDs.
Depending on, like for instance, well, Freedom, you said that's where it almost has to be. In most areas there, could it be single house apartments, some commercial, or not that much of a mix?
No, I think you can have some of that mix, absolutely. I think it really depend on the property itself and what type of site plan they came into us with, but yes.
And we've had developers, I think, over the years, give us a school site. Some of them were very costly, but not as part of a PUD, where you see in other counties. Well, we did one in Spring Ridge where there was a school site in the plan mix, and of course Columbia,
It was
obviously.
associated with the PUD?
Hmm?
There was a
Yes.
school site associated with a
Yes.
PUD?
Yeah, I mean, on large-scale developments, when you're talking several hundred to almost 1,000 units, yeah, you're going to get that sort of thing.
Yes.
We have not had that type of large-scale development come in Carroll County, so that's why we have not seen things like
We
that.
probably don't have room hardly any place. do we?
I would say currently, under our current infrastructure, I'd say we'd be very hard-pressed to find
what I
that
would
type of
think.
land available to do that type of development.
Now that you're over time, thank you very much.
No, I appreciate the conversation.
Thanks
It's
very much.
It's brought up. PUDs are brought up. Any other comments? We know how to find you?
I just had a quick ask if I can, unrelated, when able, if I could get a electronic version of that CTP letter from last March, email
Sure.
it to me when you get a chance.
Yep, absolutely. We'll send that up to you. All right.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Take care. Have a
Take
great day.
this,
Thank you.
Yes.
Check out that map.
All right, I'm going right now.
See you, Linda.
Okay. Target. Target Community
I think,
Educational Services. Huh?
I think
Oh, I apologize.
Maryland Department of Ag was
I'm
actually.
so, I'm sorry. That's all right. Yes, Department of Ag. Sorry about that.
How best to distribute these?
Sure.
How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you gentlemen doing?
Every day is a good
Afternoon.
day.
Okay.
So,
Everybody got a copy there? Okay, I was asked to come in and talk a little bit about the forest pest management activity my group does in Carroll County. I'm the regional entomologist through the Maryland Department of Agriculture Forest Pest Management section. Carroll County's one of 4.5 counties that I'm responsible for. We've been doing activities related to forest pest management since the late 1970s. Our primary insect of concern is the spongy moth, formerly known as gypsy moth. And there have been several outbreaks through the years, resulting in some defoliation and damage to the forests in Carroll County. The last outbreak in central Maryland was in 2006 through 2009, and during that period we did do aerial spraying in Carroll County, and we follow up with defoliation surveys and additional population surveys. The spongy moth populations have been low for the since 2009, primarily due to some diseases that affect the caterpillars. So we've been very lucky, knock on the wood. We do currently have an outbreak going on down on the lower eastern shore. Last year we sprayed 7,000 acres. This year we're proposing about 6,000 acres. So just a couple other highlights of the spongy moth program. Annually we conduct egg mass surveys in qualifying wooded areas on a priority basis. We ask that the county do a 50% cost share on the cost of these surveys. The season that we just finished up, we conducted 414 of these egg mass surveys in Carroll County. Of those, only one positive site was found. That was one egg mass, so it's very good. The wooded areas, we did about 30% of the wooded areas. If we were to find an active spongy moth population that reaches above a threshold where we suspect that defoliation will occur, we propose and implement an aerial suppression project. If we do have one of those projects, we request that the county's cost share 25 to 50% of the cost on the suppression project. We do get federal funds for that. Normally they're up to 50% of the cost. The state and the county would share the additional money that the federal government didn't cover. And if we do have the suppression project, we do follow up with monitoring caterpillar survival and mapping defoliation. Other projects that we do that we don't directly bill the counties to, that are funded through federal grants: hemlock woolly adelgid suppression. Fortunately, there's not a lot of hemlock in Carroll County. There's only one small stand in Patapsco Valley State Park. We set out various insect traps for pests like the Cyrex wood wasp, which has not been found in Maryland, the walnut twig beetle, which is a vector of thousand canker disease, and that is starting to be found in other areas of Maryland. This year we found some in western Baltimore County, so it's closing in on the Carroll County border. A new condition that's come up is beech leaf disease, which is caused by a nematode, so we do visual inspections of beech trees in the county for that. Oak decline monitoring. This is a pretty active thing throughout much of the mid-Atlantic. We are seeing oak trees dying for really an unknown reason. We are involved in doing some sample collections, which the University of Maryland is helping analyze for that. So when we get homeowners that call and tell us that their trees are dying, we will come out and take a look and take samples if appropriate. We assist other MDA and DNR programs in various forest pest issues, and we respond to citizens' inquiries or requests on unknown forest health issues. The map that I have you is the results of our egg mass surveys for this past season. There's only one area that, again, I said we had one positive site. Where Taylorsville area is, there's one woodlot in there that's green. The yellow ones are the ones we surveyed and didn't find any evidence, and the other gray ones are areas that we have selected that meet our criteria. So that's
Changing it from gypsy moth to spongy moth, is that trying to be politically correct?
yes, it was determined that gypsy was culturally offensive to the Romanian people. So it's been quite a endeavor for government agencies to go through and rebrand all their literature, and I personally had to deal with our department webpage and go through and change all that.
Yeah, I got my own feelings about that one. You said the county would be responsible for recommended 25 to 50% the cost for suppression.
Yes.
What is that actually in dollar figures?
Well, the last year our applicator cost was about $32 an acre, but when we figure in all of our other resources, last year down on the Eastern Shore it was about $40 an acre.
Okay.
So that would be rough, and every year we have a project, we have to contract an aerial applicator.
Right.
So we never know what that price is going to be, but I think last year our highest bidder was $45 an acre. So.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Thousand canker disease sounds not fun.
No, it's not for the walnut trees. The interesting part about that is this is a disease primarily of a shrub tree in the west called the Arizona walnut. But people who moved out west from the East Coast decided that our eastern walnut would make a good ornamental tree. And so they took eastern walnuts and planted them out west, outside their normal range. The trees were stressed. These beetles attack the trees in great number, and they carry a fungus with them, and they put the fungus into the wood, into their egg hole. They bore holes in the tree to lay their eggs, and this fungus gets in and kills the wood around the hole. So when you peel the bark off, it literally is 1,000 cankers underneath the bark killing the trees. Now, they've been finding the disease and the beetles in Maryland, but it's not killing the trees here like it does out in the West. And that's typical here on the East Coast with the native range of the trees being healthier than they were out west.
The oak decline makes me wonder. It seems like so many locust trees fall over well before they should, but is that just an indication of their poor root pattern?
Yeah, locust trees have a very shallow.
Yeah, so that's why, not a disease, not a decline.
Right,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
that's how locusts are.
Yeah, this oak decline is really a mystery to a lot of people. We have the University of Maryland plant pathologist, the U.S. Forest Service plant pathologist. Trees leaf out in the spring, look very healthy, and then sometime mid-June through the rest of the summer, in a matter of 3 or 4 days, they'll go from being green to brown
Yep.
to dead. And it's a, you know, we're finding, we take these samples and they find the typical native funguses that would be around attacking trees. The most recent stuff that the University of Maryland came up with is the extreme weather conditions, really wet conditions, that they think that the trees actually, some of the root structures may be drowning from the excessive moisture that we had, particularly 2018 and 2019. But we're still in the process of looking at, you know, surface funguses, soil funguses, things like that. So it's an ongoing process for trying to figure out what's causing this oak decline.
Okay, any other questions? Good discussion. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
for
Thank you
coming
very
to see us.
much.
Appreciate it.
There you go.
Okay, now, I apologize, Matthew, Target Community and Educational Services.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I've been teaching this week. I can't look at another PowerPoint presentation, let alone read one to you, so I'm just going to talk. First is an introduction of myself. I'm new to Carroll County and new to Maryland. I moved for this position, moved in late June, started the work on July 1st. I've spent about the last 20 years just north of Kansas City at a place called Benedictine College, where I was a professor and administrator, and I grew up in a county very similar to Carroll County and south central Kansas on a large Hereford ranch. So I've had a very welcome and comfortable reception, and I appreciate that. I got to spend some time with you. Didn't know I was there, but I appreciated your time on the Carroll Leadership County Government Day. It was
Okay.
great to hear your thoughts and get to know all of you. In talking about Target, the first thing I like to do in a presentation is to ask if you all have any questions. I would hate to leave the room today without answering any questions or concerns that you have. Okay, so a brief history of Target. We're celebrating our 40th year this year. Target was conceived of an idea in the early 1980s, not knowing your connection to disabilities in the early 1980s. We were in a time of social change related to society's treatment of individuals with disabilities. Before 1960, 1970, if you were born in this country with a disability, it's very likely that you were put into a long stay institution, really a human warehouse. People that did remain in the community were very hidden from the community. When I was in college, I learned that I had a great uncle who was not born with a disability but contracted scarlet fever at a very young age. My great-grandpa, who's Scotch and Irish and stubborn, was told by a doctor to send him to an institution, and I'm sure my great-grandfather's response included where to put that advice and a place that the sun doesn't shine. And so my Uncle Paul was taken back to the farm, and only on a full moon, when great-grandpa would hitch the horses to the wagon, would he leave the farm for a wagon ride. So for most of our history, we've kept people with disabilities hidden from society. Through deinstitutionalization in the 1960s and 70s, we stopped sending people out of the community to those institutions and then really released people back into the community, and thus a need for an increase in community services, serving these individuals in the place that they lived. The first backlash was residential communities that were a lot like the institutions, only smaller. I grew up working in group homes where 10 or 12 people lived or were housed. I don't think that's a very natural expression of how we organize our lives. I tell my college students that unless they move to New York City right after graduation with no money, they're probably not going to be in a situation with 10 or 11 other roommates. The Target homes that exist within the county and the community of Westminster, we have 7, are home to 3 individuals with disabilities. This is a more natural expression. Of the homes, 1 is out on Houck Road in the county. The other 6 are here within the community. Houck is that we call it the Houck House, was a house that we purchased and have renovated for our needs. The other 6 homes here within the city limits have been custom built for our needs. Unique things about our residential program is our partnership with McDaniel College. So my job is not only as the CEO of Target, but I also have an endowed professorship at McDaniel where I direct a master's program in human service management. The students in that program are Target employees who live in the group homes in pairs. So we call them community living managers. They're working within those homes, managing all of the operations of the home while receiving and studying for and receiving the master's degree. So in addition to the people we serve residentially, we're also recruiting 8 people a year to come to Westminster to enhance their education, and many of them stick around. We try at Target to hire the very best of our students. The other agencies in town that serve those with disabilities work to hire our folks as well. In fact, I'm sure you'll hear from my 3 colleagues, the 3 other agencies that serve people with disabilities, the ARC, Flying Colors, and Penmar. Those 3 CEOs are graduates of this program. And so beyond the people that we serve, I think we have a high impact on the community in terms of job development. This is a vision of mine. Like I said, I come from a rural area, a county whose makeup is very much like Carroll County. I'm a lifelong 4-H'er, and I believe that it is my job to serve the commitment to the community. In addition to our residential homes, we operate our services in 2 other spaces, really 3. Personal support. So these are individuals who are younger, right? Many of the people in our group home are of an age that they may have been institutionalized. Many of them were in the early part of their life. But in 1975, people with disabilities gained the civil rights to public education through the what we now call IDEA, special ed law. And so students who are my age and younger have gone to school, have been able to develop themselves personally, economically, and so engage in an environment today where they need much less support. They're able to live more independently, work within the community. Sometimes they do need help accessing the community, the recreation, their church life, the other aspects of community life. And so through personal supports, we help them. We currently serve about 34 individuals through personal supports. We also operate in the vocational space. These individuals need a different level of support within their vocational life. We currently serve 57 individuals through vocational services. Not all of them are working within the community. About 75% of them have paid jobs within the community. We have a new challenge from the state of Maryland that demands that individuals in our vocational services are out working or volunteering, and that's all of them. The challenge becomes when you are someone with a disability, the way that you age might be very different than how all of us will age. And so while I probably will work into my late 60s or early 70s, we serve people who are in their 50s who really no longer have the capacity to work. And so even though the state believes that they all should be working, some just don't have the capacity to do so. So some of those folks come to our offices during the day and engage in employment programs, but not really with the goal of independent employment. The 4th area that we serve is through the Carroll County Public Schools. Target operates the autism waiver, and so we're serving many students a year in the summertime in workforce development programs who are on the spectrum. As I mentioned, the value that I bring to Target is community development, and so of the individuals that we serve directly, we are developing their lives within the community so that they can have a contribution to the community, so that they can have jobs, so that they can pay taxes, so they can fully exist within our democracy. The secondary level that I think is just as important is workforce development. We're a human service agency. We not only serve our participants and our residents, we also serve the folks on our team, the folks that work with us. We're beginning to develop a partnership with Carroll Community College. We've set aside some policies since I've been here. We've written policy to support our employees going through their certified nurses aid program. Those are skills that are directly beneficial in our residential homes, but also are a tide that rises all ships related to the workforce within the county. We'll be unveiling other means of developing our workforce in the future. We've just finished the process of developing our new goals and benchmarks to report to you on a biannual basis. My background is in assessment at the college level. I think the goals that we've given you over the last few years were goals for the sake of goals. I can't lead an organization that doesn't make database decisions, so we're going to do some more detailed reporting. I'm sorry if the information is more than you want to read, but I'm not going to give you numbers just to give you numbers. And so that's who I am. That's where Target is right now. Anything else?
I'm curious.
Yes.
How did you find out about Target, and what were the deciding factors that got you to Target and Carroll County?
Yeah, so I can tell you the short version or the long version. I don't know where I am on time. I found out about it because of a headhunter email. When your name is at a certain level on a college website, you get these. I very, very rarely read them. Benedictine College is my alma mater, and so when you've reached tenure and full professorship at your alma mater, you don't leave. My youngest is a freshman at St. Louis University and graduated from high school in the spring, so this was the first chance that I had to look around for something different. Something else about me, because I'm a farm kid, I don't work at home. I'll stay 16 hours a day in the office if I need to. I don't do a minute of work at home. But the email came in December when I'm grading. Final season, right? And if you've ever graded anything, you will take any excuse not to grade. And so I was at home with my laptop. This email popped up from a search institute. I read it, and I knew pretty clearly after reading the email that this is what I needed to do next. My college students teach me the word is voluntold. I was, as a 13-year-old, was voluntold to go work at a summer camp for people with disabilities that was new in my church community. I did not want to do that. I had no experience with people with disabilities, but we were baling hay that week, and so if you know that job, you're looking for excuses to get out of it. And so I knew after that week that this is how I wanted to organize my life. I've been in special ed as a teacher and then preparing special ed teachers. But I've worked in the ivory tower for a long time, and the call to come back to the field and to be able to split my time with still teaching at McDaniel. But every morning I sit in the lobby of our building. I've been a school principal, and so stand outside when the kids get there. And I sit in the lobby as our individuals come in to participate in programs, and I didn't get that on a college campus. I didn't get that daily interaction. Carroll County specifically, I've been in Kansas. It's February in Kansas right now. There is some green here, and so my overall mental state is much better. I've been a lifelong Kansan. Maryland seemed like a great place to come. I lived equal distance from I-70 in Kansas as I do here in Maryland. It's nice to be on the East Coast. It's nice to be in a county that seems very familiar economically, politically, as the counties I've come from.
So, I graduated also with a special ed degree. So 94-142 was embedded in my head.
That's right.
And it's the public law that ensures children of special needs are education is available to them between ages 3 and 21.
That's right.
And that was, very important to all of us when that law was passed in the early 70s. And I'm sure that's what you were referring to.
Yep,
So,
1975, November the 10th.
And autism, there's a facility relatively new down in Eldersburg, the southern part. Are you familiar with its early childhood?
I am.
Okay.
Yep, I believe that Mrs. Collier is the director of that program.
Okay.
She's a graduate of our master's program.
Yep. And, I introduced them also to the school system, CCPS, and this must have been in the summer. So anything we can continue to do, I believe teamwork, to work with children on the spectrum. One person doesn't have it all, like you said, the rising water, all ships, that kind of stuff. There's a lot to go around, and that's a good organization that I'm, believe can go a long ways in partnership with CCPS and you, along with organizations like the ARC. Don Rao is a great guy, and hopefully you have made some of those relationships.
Yeah, we have breakfast once a month. Don's been a great mentor to help me come to
That's
understand the local
fantastic.
community.
Although he's a Winners Mill wrestling fan, that won't hold that against him.
If you've had his sausage, you might overlook that.
What's that?
He makes great sausage at Christmas time. You got to get on his list.
Huh. Okay. I need to know that. So,
He lives in a nice rural area.
yeah. But no, this is great. You said all the right things. It's all about community. It's all about bringing the team together. So, appreciate you coming in. Any comments or thoughts?
There's a new facility or service down on Main Street in Mount Airy that I'm not personally familiar with, but you might be. I'm just trying to gather a little situational awareness on what that is exactly.
I don't know.
Okay. You know what? I'll. It's fairly new. They just
Okay.
opened. I think they're providing service to people in that area. I will reach out to you, and
Okay.
we can try to figure out what it is together,
Yeah.
because I kind of feel like I need to know what it is.
That'd be great.
That's my area down
Yeah,
there.
okay.
Before,
Yeah.
so.
I've been through Mount Airy a few times, and I finally stopped at a Thai restaurant right off the highway that now I don't drive by without stopping.
Yeah, we're on the outer rim over there, so
Yeah.
not everybody gets down to Mount Airy, but
Yeah.
I'll reach out to you. I
Sounds
appreciate
great.
your time too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, fantastic. Anything else? Okay.
right.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir,
very
so
much.
much.
Gentlemen, thank you for your service. We'll see
Thank you
again.
very much.
Yeah.
Without our early questions, you kind of hit every topic well. Thank you.
You did.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
For the good of us, a couple things before we close. Just want to share, and then also open up for any open admin additional. Linda Eisenberg did check out that map,
Oh, yeah?
and she says it's identical.
No kidding.
Wow.
So the 1912 electoral map
That's really interesting.
is the map they're using. She goes, it's identical. Isn't
That
that,
is fascinating.
isn't that incredible? So you wonder what or when that started, but we know it's at least 1912.
And it's just like.
Saying that 1912 map I have in my office is identical to what Linda showed.
She looked and she said that, really cool.
Numbers.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's like the last census. I think your close personal friend, Commissioner Weaver, he was so sure his area had grown, it actually had shrinked a
Right.
little bit. And yeah, they moved the maps around,
Yep.
but the population, Carroll County stays pretty consistent.
It does.
We really didn't grow.
The second thing I want to share, I got a call from Jessica Cook, Senator Cardin's office. Senator Cardin wants to come out here, physically come out here, and focus on veterans and look at the veteran programs, because we continue to highlight it and the importance of it. And we invited him out to see the veterans site that's going to be, built. And that's a large reason why he wants to come out, because of appropriations. I have a few dates in March, early March. None of them are on a Tuesday, so the Veterans Council doesn't fit, but getting them over to the Veteran Support Offices, talking with, Celine and Gina and Bobby, all part of the Veterans Program. Talk about the Veterans Celebration, show him the site. I think there's enough to fill, a few hours. But I'll get more information as this kind of gets packaged, but I just want to give you the heads up. It's always cool when somebody's reaching out to us at a level that high that has money and can touch purse strings, wanting to know about programs that we're running. So that's a good thing. That was out of
That
nowhere.
is awesome.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else? I know it was a long one. for the good of the group? Seeing here none, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.